We want to help you and your team use FEMA disaster assistance wisely. We are using a series of videos, podcasts, and blog posts to help you understand the FEMA Public Assistance Grant Program. This episode helps with navigating public assistance following a disaster. During this presentation, we will discuss the FEMA PAPPG, the Public Assistance Program Policy Guide, and the Stafford Act. My name is Christina Moore. My team at Storm Petrel and I have responded to natural disasters since 2012 as experts in how to manage disaster relief grants. We want to help you rebuild better. Our team and our tools have helped people across this nation successfully navigate the FEMA Public Assistance Grant Program lifecycle. My disclosure, I represent Storm Petrel LLC, a for-profit company. We have contractual obligations to our customers to provide training on our software product, Tempest Gems. We have existing government contracts and people we must support and cannot get to. This material is free to all interested. I do not represent FEMA nor the federal government. And of course, you'll know I have a bias towards our product. We do not provide consulting services. There are great firms that you can turn to. End of disclosure. We are providing these materials to you, hoping that you can help your community, your organization survive this disaster and wisely execute the mission before you. If you appreciate this presentation, please share it. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell. In this episode, we will reference the FEMA Quest game that we invented to illustrate the FEMA Public Assistance Grant lifecycle. This time, though, we'll take a bit more buttoned-up, collared shirt approach. We'll step through the FEMA approach using FEMA terms and applying more standard government-like language. It is our intent to bridge between our casual and fun way of looking at the FEMA process and the FEMA lingo. We will introduce you to the application process and the FEMA Grants Portal. We'll discuss terms such as obligation and grant award. We'll drive home the importance of the scope of work. We will again touch on the difference between large and small grants. As we step through the life cycle, we will identify the difference in each phase. Here, FEMA seems in charge. Here, your state. Here, you're doing your thing quietly, and the tools available to you as you work through these stages. We'll define reimbursement, and we'll touch on other requests that you make to your state. The life cycle concludes with closeout and the final reimbursements. It's an emergency, and your community needs funds. In the next episode, we discuss how to secure them. There are elements of the FEMA Public Assistance Grant Program that are more hidden to the normal applicant. I'm going to ignore those elements. The process that I care the most about begins when you know that a disaster has been declared or is likely to be declared. You and I can do little about the process before declaration. That's between the governor and the president and FEMA. For coastal communities, we know that when a hurricane happens, our declaration may include several days before the impact. That's interesting, and it's relevant to COVID-19 because most declarations that I've seen so far, April 2020, is to set the date of disaster to 20 January, which is almost 45 to 60 days ago. You have costs that may be eligible for the weeks prior to the declaration. My audience are people who are responsible for executing projects funded by FEMA grant dollars. Therefore, our starting point is the disaster declaration, and more precisely, the performance start date. There is no grant before this moment. The experienced amongst us may start collecting data and logs beforehand in anticipation of funding. Good for you. Well done. The grant application process with FEMA is squishy and flexible. Of course, the day you are informed about it, then it's precise. Follow the rules of the day. Why is it squishy and flexible? Because the process changes one disaster to another. They, whoever they are, won't admit this. Some years you must be physically present in a room and sign a roster and fill out a piece of paper to declare your intent. Not likely with COVID-19. Sometimes you'll be instructed to go to the FEMA Grants Portal to initiate your process. Through 2019, that was either absolutely mandatory or unknown. FEMA and state directors figured that out along the way. And there is a rumor here in April 2020 that the COVID-19 grant application process may go to the grants portal for some, and others will be helped in other ways. I can't help here. There is a grant application process. It is either the FEMA Grants Portal or not. At the end of the process, you will have 0, 1, or more grants with federal funds obligated to it. What do you need for a grant application? Number 1 is a means of estimating the cost of the disaster. The declarations I have seen involve Category B, emergency protective measures. So any action that your governmental entity or nonprofit took to prevent death, improve public health, and protect improved property from the impacts of this disaster may be eligible for reimbursement. If you run a municipality or a municipal agency, you are a likely candidate. If your organization provides essential government-like services, you're a likely candidate. Episode 5 discusses eligibility. This includes nonprofit ambulance services, nonprofit water districts, nonprofit libraries, nonprofit hospitals, and nursing facilities. You'll need to estimate your labor costs. Go listen to the first episode of this series for help on that. You'll need to estimate material costs, incidental costs, contracted costs, and if you contracted services and purchased materials, know that the federal procurement rules already apply. We'll talk a lot about this in this series. That's your biggest trap right there. So the grant application process involves cost estimates and the scope of work you provided or may provide in the future. The best help we can provide is to give you the rule book for this game. It's called the Papaji, or the PAPPG, the Public Assistance Program and Policy Guide. Click the links below to download this PDF book. The grant lifecycle really starts at award or obligation. The process of making the award is typically FEMA-led, or if state-led, then FEMA has a heavy hand behind the scenes. And let me define state. In 2 CFR 200.90, the U.S. government defines state to include the territories and District of Columbia. Within the body of laws related to federal grants, we have 58 states. Following obligation, FEMA steps into a secondary role. You are done with the FEMA Grants Portal. The FEMA Grants Portal is not a grants management system. It guides organization through the grant application process. It fades away at obligation. Bye-bye, portal. There are still 3 players involved in the grant lifecycle, maybe 4. The first is you. You are responsible for executing the project defined within the grant application. You must work within the budget prescribed and execute the clauses with precision. Let me be even clearer. You must document that you executed this process with precision. No document, no money. So, you are the party of the first part. You represent the grant execution team, also called grant management. The party of the second part, that's your state. Your state is responsible for the administration of this grant. It is their job to provide monitoring and controls on the process. It is their job to provide oversight, guidance, training, and tools to you, the grant execution team. You will submit requests to state administrators, and they will respond. Their response time is defined in policy. And what do you request of them? You may request an extension of time, or request reimbursement, or you may request an appeal, or you may request additional funds. The party of the third part is FEMA. They are the grantor. They establish the rules for the state and for you to follow. While you and I know that these dollars are our tax dollars, we acknowledge that FEMA has the legal obligation to disperse our funds in accordance with administrative policy and law. They are always there. The party of the fourth part is the Inspector General, the Office of the Inspector General. They are the watchdog. I like them. Traditionally, they bring fairness and sunlight to the process. Their bite stings, but it stings both FEMA and the grant execution teams, typically fairly. As the process wraps up, you'll work to close out your grant. This is a final reconciliation of all dollars, all documents, and all data you have collected. In Tempest Gems, we say the first document you collect is the first step to close out. That's a shameless plug, but it should be true without Tempest Gems. The first document you collect, scan, and put into a binder is your first real step towards closeout. At the end, you will compare your documents to a master document checklist. You'll make sure that every dollar spent matches your scope of work, that every dollar spent includes an invoice and proof of payment. You'll make sure that every contract issued has at least 11 documents to lend proof to your efforts to follow federal procurement law. And you'll get this neat, organized pile of documents for your state to close out. Done right, you'll get your final check. Your ultimate objective is to recover funds from FEMA and your state within legal bounds. The grant lifecycle really starts with the grant application phase. You'll provide cost estimates and describe your mission. After grant award and financial obligation by FEMA, you'll be responsible for tracking actual costs, executing procurement in accordance to federal law, and collecting documents proving you did each action that is required of you. You may make requests of the state to extend timelines, ask for more money, ask for reimbursement, In time, you'll be ready to close out your grant. You'll collate all of your documents in a nice, neat, orderly fashion and submit them to your state. Note that this may seem like a duplicate process. You gave them this or you gave them that. It doesn't matter. Your closeout book is the complete story from bang to closeout, inclusive. Did you find this helpful? Do you have any questions? Let me know in the comments below. Give a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of upcoming episodes. And there's a link for the Papaji down below. Please share this material with colleagues, post about us and our efforts on your favorite social media platform, and don't forget to grab the FEMA document called the Papaji. I salute you and thank you for your willingness to take on this mission.